I first became aware of Sally Mann around college. Her images were very relatable to me. They were all photographs of her family, her home in the dense forest of Virginia, and pockets of her home that only she was aware of. Her subjects weren't fashion icons or models. They weren't captured with 1200 watt-second flashbulbs on a crowded set. This was her family, and her love for them shined through in the images. While I didn't grow up in the South, the themes of intimacy, romanticized beauty, and ethereal landscapes were all very familiar to me, having grown up in a kind of a swampy area and a tight-knit family in very rural northeastern Wisconsin. As I dove deeper into her catalog of work, I discovered more and more of these themes of darkness, disillusionment, and redemption, like those in her What Remains series, documenting the decomposing bodies at a federal facility. Her career is highly esteemed, and she is greatly respected in the fine art community, not only for her chosen subject matter and approach to it, but also for the legal stand she took against her controversial presentation of nude children. I'm Robert Schultze, and this is LightMeter. Today I'm going to talk about Sally Mann, a fine art photographer from the South that has always and continues to stand up for herself, her subject matter, and visual artists worldwide. She's prolific with more than 10 books to her name, over 200 exhibitions and publications, and is the author of Hold Still, a memoir that I cannot recommend enough. Sally Mann was born in Lexington, Virginia on May 1, 1951, the third of 3 children. Her mother, Elizabeth Evans Munger, ran the bookstore at Washington and Lee University in Lexington, and her father, Robert S. Munger, was a general practitioner. She became known for her large-format black and white photographs of landscapes and later for her controversial photographs of her nude young children. She was introduced to photography by her father, who gave her his 5x7 camera, becoming the basis of her use of large-format cameras later in her life. Mann began to photograph when she was 16. Most of her photographs and writings are tied to Lexington, Virginia. She earned a BA summa cum laude from Hollins College in 1974 and an MA in creative writing in 1975. She took up photography at Putney, where, she claims, her motive was to be alone in the darkroom with her boyfriend. She has never had any formal training in photography. After graduating from Hollins College, Mann worked as a photographer at Washington and Lee University. In the mid-1970s, she photographed the construction of its new law school building, the Lewis Hall, now known as the Sidney Lewis Hall, leading to her first solo exhibition in late 1977 at the Corcoran Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. While Mann explored a variety of genres as she was maturing in the 1970s, she truly found her trade with her book, At 12, Portraits of Young Women, published in 1988. The book stimulated minor controversy. In the preface of the book, Ann Beattie says, "When a girl is 12 years old, she often wants, or says she wants, less involvement with adults. It is a time in which the girls yearn for freedom and adults feel their own grip on things becoming a little tenuous as they realize that they have to let their children go." Beattie says that Mann's photographs don't glamorize the world, but they don't make it into something more unpleasant than it is either. The girls photographed in the series are shown vulnerable and in their youthfulness, but Mann instead focuses on the strength that these girls possess. In 1995, she was featured in an issue of Aperture, on location with Henry Cartier-Bresson, Graciela Etubride, Barbara Kruger, Sally Mann, Andrea Serrano, Clarissa Sly, which was illustrated with photographs. Mann is widely known for her book, Immediate Family, first exhibited in 1990. The book consists of 65 black and white photographs of her 3 children, all under the age of 10. Many of these pictures were taken at the family's remote summer cabin along the river, where the children played and swam in the nude. Many explore typical childhood themes such as skinny dipping, reading the funnies, dressing up, napping, playing board games, and more, but others touch on darker themes such as insecurity, loneliness, injury, sexuality, and death. The controversy on its release was intense, which included accusations of child pornography, contrived fiction, and was constructed to blow. Many of her photographs containing her nude or hurt children caused controversy. In The Perfect Tomato, the viewer sees a nude Jessie posing on a picnic table outside, bathed in light with a tomato. Jessie told Stephen Cantor during the filming of one of his movies that she had just been playing around and her mother told her to freeze, and she tried to capture the image in a rush because the sun was setting. This image was likely criticized for Jessie's nudity and presentation of the adolescent female form. While Jessie was aware of this photograph, Dana Cox, in her essay, said that Mann's children were probably unaware of the other photographs being taken, as Mann's children were often naked because it came natural to them. This habit of nudity is a family thing because Mann said she used to walk around her house naked when she was growing up. Cox states, "The own artist's childhood is reflected in the way she captures moments in her children's lives." One image that deals more with another aspect of childhood besides naked play, Jessie's cut, shows Jessie's head wrapped in what appears to be plastic with blood running down the side of her face from the cut above her left eye. The cut is stitched and the blood is dry and stains her skin. As painful as the image looks, there are a great number of viewers who could relate to Jessie when they think about the broken bones and stitched up cuts they had during childhood. Mann herself considered these photographs to be natural through the eyes of a mother, since she has seen her children in every state: happy, sad, playful, sick, bloodied, angry, and even naked. Critics agreed, saying her vision in large measure is accurate and a welcome corrective to familiar notions of youth as a time of unalloyed sweetness and innocence, and that the book created a place that looked like Eden, then cast upon it the subdued and shifting light of nostalgia, sexuality, and death. Mann captured a combination of spontaneous and carefully arranged moments of childhood repose and revealingly, sometimes unnervingly, imaginative play. What the outraged critics of her child nudes failed to grant was the patent devotion involved throughout the project and the delighted complicity of her son and daughters in so many of the solemn or playful events. No other collection of family photographs is remotely like it, both in its naked candor and the fervor of its maternal curiosity and care. The New Republic considered it one of the great photograph books of our time, and Time magazine named Sally Mann America's Best Photographer in 2001. Despite the controversy, Mann was never charged with taking or selling of child pornography, even though, according to Edward DeGrazia, law professor and civil liberties expert, any federal prosecutor anywhere in the country could bring a case against Mann in Virginia, and not only seize her photos, her equipment, her Rolodexes, but also seize her children for psychiatric and physical examination. Before she published Immediate Family, she consulted a Virginia federal prosecutor who told her that some of the images she was exhibiting could have her arrested. In 1991, she initially decided to postpone the publication of the book. In an interview with New York Times reporter Richard Woodward, she said, "I thought the book could wait 10 years, when the kids won't be living in the same bodies. They'll have matured and they'll understand the implication of the pictures." The children apparently did not like this decision, and Mann and her husband arranged for Emmett and Jessie to talk to a psychologist to be sure their feelings were honest, and so that they understood what the publication would do. Each child was then allowed to vote on which photographs were to be put in the book. Dr. Erin Esmond, a child psychiatrist at the Payne Whitney Clinic, believes that Mann is serious about her work and that she has no intention to jeopardize her children or use them for pornographic images. He says that the nude photographs don't appear to be erotically stimulating to anyone but a case-hardened pedophile or a rather dogmatic religious fundamentalist. Mann stated, "I didn't expect the controversy over the pictures of my children. I was just a mother photographing her children as they were growing up. I was exploring different subjects with them." Her fourth book, Still Time, published in 1994, was based on the catalog of a traveling exhibition that included more than 20 years of her photography. The 60 images included more photographs of her children, but also earlier landscapes with color and abstract photographs. In the mid-1990s, Mann began photographing landscapes on wet-plate collodion 8x10-inch glass negatives, and used the same 100-year-old 8x10 format bellows view camera that she had used for all the previous bodies of work. These landscapes were first seen in Still Time, and later featured in 2 shows presented by the Edwin Hoke Gallery in New York City in 1997. Many of these large black and white manipulated prints, sometimes as large as 40 by 50, were taken using a 19th century wet plate process, or collodion, in which glass plates are coated with collodion, dipped in silver nitrate, and exposed while still wet. This gave the photographs what the New York Times called a swirling ethereal image with a center of preternatural clarity, and showed many flaws and artifacts, some from the process and some introduced by Mann. Mann uses antique view cameras from the early 1890s. These cameras have wooden frames, accordion-like bellows, and lenses made out of brass, now held together by tape that has mold growing inside. This sort of camera, when used with vintage lenses, softens the light, which makes the pictures ethereal, timeless, and otherworldly. Mann's fifth book, What Remains, published in 2003, is based on a show of the same name at the Corcoran Gallery in Washington, D.C. The first section contains photographs of the remains of Eva, her greyhound, after decomposition, and photographs of dead and decomposing bodies at a federal forensic anthropology facility used for studying decomposition for law enforcement, also known as the Body Farm, that she got permission to photograph in. The second part details the site on her property where an armed escaped convict was killed in a shootout with police. The third part is a study of the grounds of Antietam, the site of the bloodiest single-day battle in American history during the Civil War. The fourth part is a study of close-up faces of her children. Thus, this study of mortality, decay, and death ends with hope and love. Her sixth book, Deep South, published in 2005, with 65 black and white images, includes landscapes taken from 1992 to 2004, using both conventional 8x10 film and wet plate collodion. These photographs have been described as haunted landscapes of the South, battlefields, and decaying mansions. Newsweek picked it at their book choice for the holiday season, saying that Mann walks right up to every Southern stereotype in the book and subtly demolishes each in its turn by creating indelibly disturbing images that hover somewhere between document and dream. Sally Mann is passionate about endurance horse racing. In 2006, her Arabian horse ruptured an aneurysm while she was riding him. In the horse's death throes, Mann was thrown to the ground, the horse rolled over her, and the impact broke her back. It took her 2 years to recover from the accident, and during this time, she made a series of amber-type self-portraits. These self-portraits were on view for the first time in November 2010 at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts as part of Sally Mann, The Flesh and the Spirit. Mann's seventh book, Proud Flesh, published in 2009, is a study taken over 6 years of the effects of muscular dystrophy on her husband Larry Mann. Mann photographed her husband using the collodion wet plate process. As she notes, the results of this rare reversal of photographic roles are candid, extraordinarily wrenching, and touchingly frank portraits of a man at his most vulnerable moment. The project was displayed in Gagosian Gallery in October 2009. Mann's eighth book, The Flesh and the Spirit, published in 2010, was released in conjunction with a comprehensive show at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in Richmond, Virginia. Regarding this exhibition, the museum director stated, "She follows her own voice. Her pictures are imbued with an amazing degree of soul." Though not strictly retrospective, this 200-page book included new and recent work, such as unpublished self-portraits, landscapes, images of her husband, her children's faces, and of the dead at a forensic institute, as well as early works like unpublished color photographs of her children in the 1990s, color Polaroids, and platinum prints from the 1970s. Its unifying theme is the body, with its vagaries of illness and death. In May 2011, she delivered the 3-day Massey Lecture Series at Harvard. In June 2011, Mann sat down with one of her contemporaries, Nan Golden, at Look 3 Charlottesville Festival of the Photograph. The two photographers discussed their respective careers, particularly the ways in which photographing personal lives became a source of professional controversy. This was followed by an appearance at the University of Michigan as part of the Penny W. Stamps Lecture Series. Mann's ninth book, Hold Still, a memoir with photographs, which was the primary source for this podcast, was released on May 12, 2015. It's a melding of memoir of her youth, an examination of some of the major influences in her life, and reflections on how photography shapes one's view of the world. It is augmented with numerous photographs, letters, and other memorabilia. She singles out her near-feral childhood and her subsequent introduction to photography at Putney, her relationship to her husband of 40 years and his parents' mysterious death, her parents' maternal Welsh relatives' nostalgia for land morphing into her love for her land in the Shenandoah Valley, and some of her important influences. It also discusses Gigi, a black woman who is the surrogate parent who opened Mann's eyes to race relations and exploitation, her relationship with local artist Cy Twombly, and her father's genteel Southern legacy and his eventual death are also examined in this book. Mann's 10th book, Remembered Light, Cy Twombly in Lexington, was published in 2016. It is an insider's photographic view of Cy Twombly's studio in Lexington. In her recent projects, Mann has started exploring the issues of race and legacy of slavery that were a central theme of her memoir, Hold Still. They include a series of portraits of black men, all made during one-hour sessions in a studio with models not previously known to her. Some critics see in Mann's work a deep working through of the legacy of white violence in the South, while others have voiced concern that Mann's work at times repeats rather than critiques tropes of white domination and violence in the American Southeast. Time magazine named Mann America's Best Photographer in 2001. Photos she took have appeared on the cover of the New York Times Magazine twice. First, a picture of her 3 children for the September 27, 1992 issue with a feature article on her disturbing work, and again on September 9, 2001, with a self-portrait which also included her 2 daughters, for a theme issue on Women Looking at Women. Mann has been the subject of 2 film documentaries. The first, Blood Ties, directed by Steve Cantor, debuted at the 1994 Sundance Film Festival, and was nominated for an Academy Award as Best Documentary Short. The second, What Remains, was also directed by Steve Cantor. It premiered at the 2006 Sundance Film Festival and was nominated for an Emmy for Best Documentary in 2008. In her New York Times review of the film, Gina Belafonte wrote, "It is one of the most exquisitely intimate portraits, not only of an artist's process, but also of a marriage and a life, to appear on television in recent memory." Mann received an honorary Doctor of the Fine Arts degree from the Corcoran College of Art and Design in May 2006. The Royal Photographic Society in the United Kingdom awarded her an honorary fellowship in 2012. Mann won the 2016 Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Nonfiction for Hold Still, a memoir and photographs. Her works are included in the permanent collections of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the National Gallery of Art, the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden, the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and the Whitney Museum of New York City, among many others. LightMeter is researched, hosted, and produced by me, Robert Schultze. It's also co-produced by Lauren Baines and recorded in San Jose, California. Did you enjoy this podcast? Let me know your thoughts and send an email to lightmeterpodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to us on anchor.com/lightmeter, and I'm on Facebook at LightMeter Podcast, Twitter at LightMeterPC, YouTube at LightMeter, I know, sorry, there's a lot of variation on the name, but if you search for LightMeter and see our podcast logo, that's the one. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you next time.